Right, now I'm going to suggest an organized outline about Act 2, Scene 2, lines 201 to 227 from Antony and Cleopatra, Enobarbus' speech about the first meeting between Cleopatra and Antony. As you know, Cleopatra was one of the world's most ambitious women rulers, while Antony was one of the history's greatest soldiers at a time when the Roman Empire was at its most extensive. In the speech here, describing their first meeting, there is a paradox in the rapport de forces depicted at this momentary magical microcosm compared to the reality of the political macrocosm that contains it. The text creates a spellbinding image of the fabled lady herself. What is particularly interesting here is that a drama is here cast in the form of a narrative. In technical terms, this is called a ekphrasis. A ekphrasis is the verbal description of a work of art. And as such, there is the possibility of de-dramatization. In other terms, this is a dramatic pause. But the stasis in the action is offset by re-theatricalization on the grandiose scale. In other terms, you've got a dramatization of this mythical apparition of Cleopatra in the past. The speech is self-reflexive, not in terms of an individual character, but in terms of the stage itself. The scene on stage on the barge, and scene that you can see, has staging as its object. Obviously, when Cleopatra arrives to meet Antony, she stages herself as a goddess, and as a love goddess at that, so as to surprise and seduce the military Roman general Antony. In other terms, the representation of power combines with the power of representation. These were two sides of the same political coin. Therefore, I would entitle my first part Power of Representation, the power of representation. In my first part, I would deal with the wealth of words and the words of wealth. I would simply indicate that Enobarbus' speech is an ekphrasis, a verbal painting, full of hyperboles, denoting luxury and splendor. Second part, Cleopatra is described as a queen and as a goddess. Obviously, there is a historical and mythological and political parallelisms to be made between Cleopatra and Queen Elizabeth. Cleopatra on Cydnus and Queen Elizabeth on the Thames. The Thames was also the place for royal pageants. Cleopatra's stage setting triggers erotic fantasies in the Roman captain, in Enobarbus. This stage setting is at the same time plastic and chromatic, full of mythological allusions. And remember that the Elizabethan age was centuries before the channeling, the harnessing, the control of electricity, so that a woman may control fire, and especially above water, is obviously some sort of a visual feat. Third subpart, there is a clear-cut opposition between the representative of Egypt and the representative of Rome. The representative of Egypt, Cleopatra, is known from afar. The metaphors that surround her are combined with aphorisms, such as later on, for his ordinary pays his heart for what his eyes eat only. So obviously Antony is seduced by Cleopatra, and the play is about their love affair. Hence my second part, which is entitled Eroticism. First, the senses, the synesthesia that I mentioned, the combination of sounds, the sounds of the flutes, of perfumes, the sense of touch, soft as flowers, the silk, but also the control of the various elements, at least 3 out of 4, the fourth one, earth, being associated with Antony. Therefore, Cleopatra is associated with magic. At the end of our extract, Enobarbus goes as far as to say that she could have created a vacuum in nature, a gap in nature. Obviously, from the senses, the second subpart moves towards the idea of love, with mention of Venus, of Cupids, the devotion of her people, and the third subpart is about Cleopatra as a femme fatale. Her display and her staging as a femme fatale transforms Antony. He is unmanned. There is a blurring of the frontiers of gender. This is the woman who conquers the man. Paradoxically, Cleopatra remains elusive, almost invisible. She seduces via metaphors, and she obtains everything without giving anything. She has only to look at her servants and they obey her. She turns love into war and war into love. As such, she is mythologized in this scene. This is my third part, a mythologized queen. First part, the mythemes. The mythemes are the component parts of a myth. That is to say, here, the various elements that characterize Cleopatra, such as the senses, the erotic staging of herself. She also stages her person, her queenly person, as a pageant, as a painting, okay, with a particular architecture framing. She's like Venus out of the sea by Botticelli. She's compared to, this is my second subpart, to a work of art, okay, from painting to a general work of art combining music, painting, architecture, sculpture. And third subpart, her description by Enobarbus goes beyond that, in that she improves on whatever arts and whatever senses you may imagine. You may also note, as a final erotic touch, the omnipresent vowel O, present visually but also acoustically as some sort of erotic moaning. As a conclusion, I would say that this moment in the play, this description of the first encounter between Antony and Cleopatra, is an erotic apotheosis. The operation effected by Shakespeare mirrors the operation effected by Cleopatra. That is to say that it is self-reflexive, drawing the spectators/readers' attention towards the fact that this is a work of art, that Cleopatra is a work of art, but also theatre on stage is a work of art. As a bonus, I would like to offer an alternative outline, slightly different, but perhaps perhaps easier to grasp than the one that I've just I've just given you into details. And the three parts that I could also make would be the following ones. So three different perspectives or angles: power, magic, and art. Okay, providing a crescendo into the various powers embodied by Cleopatra. Thank you.